Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Thanks for staying up with us late tonight. Bob Pompeani here, manning the controls. We have a lot to get into, including Serena Williams, who had a meltdown yesterday, and it stole the limelight from a 20-year-old who won her first Grand Slam event. We'll get into that. We'll also talk about where is Pitt football in year 4 of Pat Narduzzi after a big loss last night to Penn State. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Steelers in a rare tie. They go to Cleveland and they don't get a win. Here's your panel left to right on your television screen. Andrew Fillipponi from the PMT show, new afternoons on 93.7 The Fan. In the middle, it's Chris Mack, now part of the Fan morning team at 93.7 The Fan. Congrats to both of you. And Mr. Tim Benz, who wears a lot of hats in town. You can see him on Trib Live, Pittsburgh Steelers radio network, and other things. So we have a lot of experts here talking about a lot of interesting stuff. We'll start right off the bat. Tim Benz, I want to get your take on the Steelers, specifically the situation with Le'Veon Bell. Based on what happened today, does it change your opinion about Le'Veon Bell and the need for the Steelers to have him in their lineup?
Based on what happened today, no, because I still think that Le'Veon Bell's absence will be felt, but I didn't think it would be felt today. I expected James Conner to have a big day, and he did. I think that the absence of Bell, for me, was way down the list of things that went wrong. I think he could have helped by the end because Le'Veon Bell doesn't fumble. James Conner did. At the exact same set of circumstances, the exact same stats transferred from Conner's game to Bell. I bet the Steelers win because he doesn't fumble in that situation. But as far as my concern level of it as it relates to Bell, it wasn't. The needle didn't move today for me because Conner did what I expected him to do against a Browns team that I thought he would exploit on the ground.
And my concern is much less about the one turnover that James Conner had than the 5 that the starting quarterback had. And I think even with Le'Veon Bell today, with or without him, they're not winning any football game, even against the Cleveland Browns, when the quarterback turns the ball over 5 times. This was classic road Ben. We've talked about this for years now, and he did it again today up in Cleveland.
Okay, so then I think not having Bell would make Ben Roethlisberger a more important. He already is the most important guy, but let's face it, when Bell's at his best, it takes pressure off of Ben. And now we don't know when the Steelers are going to get Le'Veon Bell. So doesn't that make it, to me, I wanted to feel good about Ben Roethlisberger coming out of this game, right? I think the onus is on him. You want to believe with the weapons they have, even without Bell, he can be an MVP-type player. I wanted to see 350 passing yards and 3 touchdowns from Ben, and I got nothing close to that. So I am concerned. I do think it makes me feel worse about the Bell situation. Conner got worse as the game went on, and I'm concerned that he's going to get worse as the season goes on.
I'm concerned, too, that when teams figure out that James Conner can effectively run the ball at the National Football League level, which he showed today in the first 2.5 quarters before the Browns started to stack the box against him, that Ben Roethlisberger, when given an opportunity, won't just consistently throw the ball where it needs to be put. Multiple times today, off target, or just making terrible reads, miscommunications with Antonio Brown, who the two of those should be telepathic at this point. And they both looked like, without Antonio Brown making a couple of spectacular catches, you would have struggled to have Brown even get the numbers that he got.
Do you still think Ben's an elite quarterback?
No.
You don't?
He's very good. When he's on, he's very good. He was terrible today.
He's getting a lot closer to making David Carr's prediction of him not being in the top 10 look real, which I didn't think was the case over the summer. You know what? I think I got a sound premise there, Andrew, about how Bell's absence may most be felt by how it impacts Roethlisberger. I actually like that line of thinking. Let me throw one at you, though, about Roethlisberger and who is in fact impacting him the most, and that is, I think, Randy Fichtner being the offensive coordinator, because within the span of, 25 minutes of Steeler football, even less than that, 15 minutes of Steeler football today in Cleveland, we saw backyard Ben emerge right away. He was back to, let's keep the play alive, let's run around. I don't know if it was because Bruce was in the building calling the game or what, but that looked like 2011 Ben Roethlisberger trying to force the ball where it shouldn't be forced and trying to rely on keeping the play alive instead of checking down. And I can't ignore the correlation to having Fichtner be the coordinator as opposed to Haley. I think that obviously manifested quickly in Game 1.
So you're at a point now where you think the coordinator change, Tim, is actually going to have a detrimental effect on this team?
I'm feeling that way now, especially combined with what you brought up about Le'Veon Bell being a failsafe. Yeah, I think it was pretty stark to me today.
Well, and when you look at it, the effect of both of those things is you basically get Ben as the coordinator on the field, trying to make too much happen.
Quarterback sneaks.
Yeah, well,
I did like that.
I
did like that.
How about Bruce Arians' comment about that? Oh, yeah, we used to do that when I was the coach over there as the offensive.
He's got
twisting the knife on Haley.
But here's another question about this offense. Do they really have a ton of weapons besides Brown? Juju looked good today, and James Conner, at least statistically, filled Le'Veon Bell's shoes. But was James Washington out there today other than punt coverage?
I think they do have one. It's too bad he's only allowed to cover punts right now. I should figure that out.
I don't understand why Switzer is getting as much play as he did today. I don't understand if this team has a tight end that can catch a ball that's thrown right at them.
Van Darius.
Well, assuming he can get on the field. I mean, there are some issues with this offense that need to be worked out. And if they're not worked out, if Roethlisberger feels like there's any sort of hiccup in this offensive train going forward, we know what's going to happen. Ben's going to try and do too much to make up for it, especially without the regulator of Todd Haley on the sideline.
And let me just say this, guys.
Quickly.
Sorry, Bob. One of the things last year that got harped on all the time was that it took Bell 3 games to round into form, and then he finally broke out in the Baltimore game. It took Ben the entire first half of last season to get himself going, and they took advantage of bad quarterbacks in a weak schedule. They're not going to have that luxury this time around.
All right, real quick, I want to ask this before we go to break, and we'll continue this into the next segment. But, Chris, today Bill Cowher joined a list of a lot of people who predicted the Steelers to win the Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl. The AFC North was not given much of a chance of being much of a challenge, but yet you see Baltimore today, 47-3. I know it's one game. Cincinnati, impressive on the road. Do you still think the Steelers are the team to beat in this division? I know it's only one game.
I still think they've got as much, if not more, talent than those other two teams. But I think after seeing what we saw today, it's hard not to start the question, especially because of the way the Ravens and Bengals went about their wins.
I was not a fan of all these people picking the Steelers to go to the Super Bowl. I thought they had a better team and a better shot last year. And I think part of the reason why they got as far as they did, 13-3, and to get a bye into the second round of the playoffs was because, A, they swept through their division at 6-0. B, they won a ton of one-possession games at the end of close contests. Both of those things evaporated today, and I can't see last year's trend of kicking back in where all those breaks go the right way. They can't go unbeaten in the division again, and I think you've got a good point, Bob. The Bengals and the Ravens look a little bit closer to the Steelers than what they were last year.
Yeah, see, I subtracted a win from the Steelers when I found out about Bell's indefinite leave, and that put Baltimore ahead of them, and I feel even better about that right now. The Ravens, for all their warts last year, were a 4th and 18 stop away from being a 10-6 football team. They made their offense better. They play a second-place schedule as opposed to the Steelers, so they avoid New England. I think they're a better team. I predict Baltimore will come here later this month and beat Pittsburgh.
We have more Steeler topics coming up, but first I want to remind you, in sports, a player's first hit, goal, first touchdown, they're all celebrated in a big way. Well, the number one Cochran, they now have first opened Toyota store, and they are celebrating with a huge grand opening sales event. You can get special offers on all Toyotas, plus an extra $1,000 over Kelley Blue Book value for your trade. The new number one Cochran Toyota, formerly Bob Massey Toyota, Route 30, is located in North Huntington, or you could visit them online, CochranToyota.com. We'll be right back with more Steeler Talk next. The number one Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by number one Cochran, Go One Better, and by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.